Hello everyone, Mr. E here, reporting live for Darktide News Network, your most trusted source for all things Darktide, and of course, Slob. Today, we are covering some absolutely breaking news as the 6th playable character class for Darktide has just emerged. Let's go live to the scene now to see exactly what class that is.
Kill him!
Okay guys, so as I anticipated from some weeks ago, we are in the ballpark of Hive Ganger with this new class, the Hive Scum. Now, as I understand from one of my Darktide News Network correspondents, the Hive Scum is actually differentiated a little bit from the Hive Ganger. A Hive Ganger is technically a derivative of Scum. Scum just refers generally to all of the underworld denizens, everybody in the lower hive that is, you know, they're rapscallions, they are traders, they are brokers, they're back alley dealers, they're fences. They are also gang members and assassins and all those sort of things as well. Whereas if they had gone with specifically Ganger, they would be sort of having to fit it all into that one archetype of this person is a career criminal, they are a gang member. That might make it hard to have a lot of options. Hive Scum does leave the door open for more options. And what I'm hoping is, and we'll circle back around to this, what I'm hoping is because they're leaving that door so wide open, and because they are not narrowing in on one specific concept as it was with the Arbites, they will have a more free reign to include stuff in this class in the future. But we'll come back to talk about that in a second. Let's first talk about the aesthetics of what we can see here and what it means for inclusions in the game. So we do have ear piercings, which is new. Now this remains to be seen if this is going to be just for gangers, but I was very shocked to see this character not have some sort of facial piercings like a nose ring. I really feel like this character like needs a nose ring. Like look at this face, right? Put a nose ring on there, right? That's 100% what, not that face. That face literally can't have a nose ring. But this one, nose ring would fit perfectly. Now this hairstyle I believe is new, and as is we are getting a deluxe hairstyle with the deluxe kit over here, which says to me there must be hairstyles coming with this set. As to whether those extend to other classes, one can only hope. Right now that we have Hive Scum on the ship, perhaps they can cut our hair for us and get it into looking, you know, better than it does, because the damn guy with the barber chair hasn't exactly been doing his job for the past 3 years. We're still dealing with like half buzz cuts and shit. Over here, we've got the deluxe outfit. I will say I am a fan of dusters like this. You know, ever since the Sunny in Philadelphia days, I gotta have my duster, and I'm digging it. I'm not really digging the GIMP mask up here so much, but I bet that could be replaced with any number of things. Even without the helmet, it would probably look pretty cool. Very curious to see what the male face looks like, because this female face is well, I mean, let's just say even by Darktide standards, this thing is going to keep me up at night. Like this is quite a grimace she's got going on here. And yeah, it is quite a snarl. They didn't pull any punches making her look pseudo villainous, or like a villain adjacent. She's not exactly good coded. Now let's go back here. I'll talk about the weapons in a minute, but I want to go backwards and make some meta commentary as we pick through the trailer itself, because there's one really large thing that's at play here that I really want to draw attention to, because I doubt if anyone else is going to talk about this, but this trailer represents a massive shift in tone for Darktide as a game and in the 40K franchise as represented in this universe. Up to this point, We have seen many trailers for updates and stuff like that. Every time, I think without fail, there have been the conspirings of the villains, and they seem to be executing loyalist soldiers or summoning in demons, or you know, they're hijacking trains, or they're generally posed as very threatening, and they are villains to be feared, perhaps not individually, but they are a force to reckon with. And you're told that, like, by the visual language of it, that like, oh yeah, like these are a threat, and overcoming them is going to be a challenge. Not the case with this trailer. And as compared to the Arbites, where the Arbites trailer was like a horror film, but shot from the point of view from the gunner who gets their head blown off by a shotgun at the end, this is a kung fu comedy, like Jackie Chan style. So we start off, and I want to point out, I'll mute it, I want to point out that how bloodless this is. It is like a 80s action film where the bad guys are holding the hero's kid hostage, and they're not doing anything. But these are enemy soldiers, right? These guys are mortal enemies. Given the chance, first of all, I think that holding an Ogren captive in this way is asking for trouble. I mean, he could probably just like headlong rush you and murder you all, but even with his hands tied behind his back, but not executing these guys on the spot is just so not characteristic of what we have seen in this universe so far, right? All of the other trailers, like the one for the Dark Communion, just featured tons of guardsmen getting mowed down. For some reason here, they're sparing these guys' life, almost like they're building up to being interrupted just in the nick of time by our hero, who has a pretty similar intro to the dog from the last one. Then we get a little grimace, like, what's that noise? And then we run off to confront them. Now, I want you to watch, not only in this scene, but I want you to watch especially in the next scene where we see these guys, look at their body language and, like, think of how it makes you feel about these guys' chances at this fight, right? How they raise their weapons like that. Now, this guy gets uppercutted. He goes sprawling, like comedic style, just absolutely slapstick, bonked across the room. It is completely exaggerated, and I honestly feel like this is played for comedic effect. In fact, this whole trailer really does feel like it's played for some sort of comedic effect. You're supposed to feel like it is very lighthearted. I also want to note that this blood right here is the only blood we will see in this trailer, as opposed to the Arbites trailer, where a guy gets the top of his fucking head blown off by a shotgun. Yeah, this is all the blood that we'll see. There we go. Those two little splatters right there. But those enemies aren't explicitly dead, as shown here. Then we get a little bit of a hero pose, a grimace, and look at these enemies. Look how they run in. If I was not lazy and I hadn't done a bunch of editing already. Oh, by the way, speaking of editing, if you want to see, like, a little bit of a Mr. E edit of this trailer, you should stick around to the end of the video, because I might have gotten a little bit carried away with the memes, guys. Okay, so watch how these guys run. They run like the characters do in Toy Story. Look at them. This is not how characters in-game run. The enemies run in-game in an actual, like with an actual gait that is threatening and imposing, like they're actually going to attack you. They have specifically rigged these enemies to run in such a way with little small steps, with their weapons raised ineffectually. Their gaze is fixed. They don't look like they're approaching with any strategy at all. And what this signifies to the viewer is that these enemies are just fodder. They are chaff. They are not going to stand a chance. These are just minions. They're going to get struck down. It's not going to be a big elaborate fight that our hero has to struggle through. These enemies are just going to get dispatched, no problem. And of course, when they get close, look at these goofballs. They run in here and what are they going to do? Body slam her? Like, they've got their weapons raised up above their head like they're Unga Bunga cavemen, and they could have been like thrusting and stabbing her at this point, but instead, they get blasted away. And of course, this is bloodless, and these enemies do multiple fucking backflips like this is like a John Woo movie. I'm very surprised there's not doves flying across here. So look at like the glory lighting and stuff. So, I mean, this is a badass pose, and obviously that's why they use it for this. But the other thing I want to point out here is that this character is smiling while she does it, right? And this, I don't think is supposed to represent that this character is a psychopath. I think it's supposed to represent that this is a light-hearted thing. This is just a romp, you know? This is just what it is. Every day I'm down there in the hive, and these stupid Mobian, you know, or they're coming up to me. They're trying to, you know, shank my boys, and I just pull out my Uzis and I go blah blah blah, and you know, that this is a completely different tone to how grim and serious everybody else takes it. Because in the Darktide that I'm familiar with up to this point, it is a fight for life and death. It's like, okay, these enemies want to kill us, and we have to survive against overwhelming odds. This character looks like they are a hero, and that they are just having a great time going about spraying these enemies down with her Uzis. So really stark change in tone there. And what it makes me think is if we continue down this path, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing or a good thing, but it's just what it makes me envision. If we continue down this path where our characters are typed as heroes like this, and these enemies are just goons, right? These are characteristic bumbling goons, as we see them here, right? Like, how is this anything but that? We're ending up with a bunch of heroes in a hero shooter against, you know, hordes of chaff enemies. And that's honestly kind of how the gameplay represents itself, is like you kill hundreds of, if not thousands of enemies every mission. We are kind of, you know, heroes, and these enemies are jokes that fall before us, and perhaps they're leaning into that angle. Perhaps with each, you know, reveal, perhaps with each new character class, we're gonna get more and more just exaggerated ways that we are just power styling on these enemies. But it remains to be seen. That might just be a little bit of my own speculation. So let's go ahead and talk about the weaponry and the kit that we can see here. Of course, we start off with the crowbar. Where is it? The crowbar. Here it is. And we'll show it again right here. So we've got our rebar, crowbar, pry bar, whatever you want to call it. It's got some barbed wire wrapped around it here with not too many barbs on it. Got a little pointed end. I'm going to go on a limb, and I'm going to guess that this weapon is going to be pretty good. Generally, blunt weapons like this, you know, I'm thinking Arbites Maul, I'm thinking Ogrin Bully Club. Those weapons are generally pretty good in terms of balance. They've got good innate armor penetration, solid base damage values, and I hope this thing has Skull Crusher, honestly. It would make no sense if it didn't, based on the other stuff it's competing against. And I bet it does have armor penetration capabilities because it's got these spikes on it. We've got our dual Uzis back holstered here. I think it's a cool way to holster those things, and they look pretty tight. You know, they're just looking like just straight Uzis. So, I mean, I can't complain about that. Good representation. Of course, we've got dual wielding. And then there's one thing right here that I'm going to turn on the volume for, so I don't want you to be alarmed if the volume's a little bit high. But it's very hard to spot visibly. But right here, she raises her hand, and just listen. You'll hear what's going on. And there you go. Okay, so you heard, if you're, you know, Darktide pilled like I am, you know the stim sound from a freaking mile away. She raises a stim out of her holster here and sticks it in her hip, and then she throws it over here and it goes clatter. And you see her here throwing it aside there. So stim. Oh, we didn't put up on that. Stim, and then she throws it over and it clatters to the ground. So this character has something to do with stims. And it has to, like, it can't just be that they're just including stims in the trailer, right? This is going to be something integral to the character, and that is something I was hoping for from a good distance out, because I feel like stims are the healing potions of, like, you know, any other game where you just sit on an absolute mountain of them. Most games I end the whole run and I have a blue or a red stim in my pocket and I literally never use it. I find myself very seldom using them because I'm like, oh, I'll save this for a time where I really need it. And then when I really need it, I just forget to use it, or I'm too busy to use it. If this character is based around getting additional buffs for that, or they can print them and apply, like, and stim other members on the team, if they're just a fucking drug pusher and they're out here just injecting other teammates with meth, that could be a very cool archetype. And I like characters that can utilize different parts of kit that other characters aren't really touching. And I feel like the stims are probably the sort of the ugly duckling that's going the least used of all of the equipment stuff in the game right now. So I'm eager to see how that plays out in game. The other thing I want to point out about the character model here, and this might just be me, but we've got these two cans of beans down here. Now, I highly doubt our scum friend here is carrying lunch around with her. Makes me think that these are some sort of improvised grenades, perhaps filled with like shrapnel or just like pure gunpowder. I don't know, but I have to imagine that it's supposed to represent something. Maybe it's just part of the outfit, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if an improvised grenade like this is on the table for one of our blitz abilities, but I have nothing really to go on past that in terms of speculation. And I think that's everything we can see here, other than, of course, the dual-wielded Uzis, but we can go ahead and check that out on the last page. One more thing I do want to note is the general the outfit we have going here, right? These boots look like they were stolen off of an Imperial like a guardsman or like some sort of military force. Like these are military issue boots, but the rest of this outfit is just piecemeal. It's like cobbled together from different tatters of stuff that has been found around the underground, which I'll comment on how I feel about these aesthetics at the end here. Let's go on and check out what is going on with these weapons, and we'll wrap it up there. So we just looked at the crowbar, and we just looked at the Uzis, so we can kind of, you know, we'll touch on those in a second, but we also have two other range weapons coming, and I have to assume this might be wrong, so don't quote me if I'm wrong, but I would have to assume that these weapons, all 6 of these here, because they are part of the deluxe edition kit, all 6 of these are exclusive to this class. And the one that has me really interested here is this. This is just a knife, right? This is like a Katachan combat blade, but if it's exclusive to this class, it's not. So perhaps this is a shiv that has a different moveset than the knives that we currently know and love, which I'd be very interested to see. But let's go up here and check this out. We first have basically like a 1911. Very surprised to not have seen any of this type of firearm represented in the game yet, like a magazine fed repeater pistol. Very common, even in 40K, but not represented in Darktide. The only magazine-fed pistol we have is the bolt pistol right there, and there's nothing else. We've got revolver, and then we've got shredder. I guess you count shredder, but yeah, having a single shot pistol like this, and it can of course be dual wielded. We've got the Uzis you mentioned, and then this right here, looking like a hypodermic like needle, kind of looking like the stim injector from what's that game? Oh, Borderlands. It looks like one of those Borderlands health injectors. Shows how much I've been thinking about Borderlands lately. Yeah, it looks like a Borderlands health injector, but this is actually a needler. This is a weapon, and these needler weapons are used a lot by, under hive denizens, and they can be fed with darts that have all sorts of properties. So they can have like poison, they can have toxins that paralyze, they can have just like sleeping darts, all sorts of things. I would guess, if I had to wager a guess, I would guess that this is going to be some sort of poison effect. That's what I'm really hoping. Second guess would be that it's going to instead lacerate enemies and cause them to stack bleed effects, which would be okay. But what I would really, really hope is that this is its own unique type of damage over time effect. What we really need in terms of damage over time effects is one that affects enemies through their armor. Because if we're going to be leaning into more enemies like the Crushers, especially at high health, bleed and damage over time effects are worthless against those armored enemies. If this poisons enemies and kills them regardless of their armor typing, does a percentage of their health per second, this could be a very useful weapon. And the fact that it is included here makes me think that it is going to be able to be dual wielded as well, because these are all one-handed weapons. Now, speaking of dual wielding, let's flip over here for a second. We already saw our crowbar in action, right? To me, looking how we two-hand it here, this is a two-handed weapon, right? You can probably, one-hand it like the shock maul or something, but then you two-hand for your power attacks, for your heavy attacks. That's what I have to imagine there. But these other two weapons, our little shiv here, and then this cleaver, these look like one-handed weapons to me, which raises the question, can this character dual wield both ranged and melee? And if they can dual wield melee, is this character going to have an archetype that is the Slayer Barden, right? That has the ability to stim and go into a frenzy. I mean, look at this character, right? They are like barbarian coded. This is like the barbarian character. If if this was just written barbarian here, would you be confused? Like it would literally almost play in the exact same way, and I could 100% see dual cleavers stimming up blue stem, go in there, go fucking crazy on the enemies, Slayer Barden Berserker style. So that's what I'm really hoping for out of this. And I don't know how dual knives would play. Just like stabbing with both like knives McGee or whatever that Futurama character is. Knife hands. What's his name? Someone comment down below. But yeah, anyway, that's what I have to look at for the weapons. Oh, okay. So overall, right, my thoughts on this. I am not as thrilled about the aesthetics as I was envisioning in my mind's eye when I was talking about Ganger. I was really thinking they would go with like a neon punk aesthetic, but the hive is a dirty place. Personally, and this is just me personally, I am not a fan of grunge and grime and dirt and improvised weapons. I like stuff that looks like it's made to actually be used as a weapon, and that's something that's always irked me about the Ogren, is that like all of his weapons are just a piece of pipe with like a lump of steel on the top, and I'm like, come on, give this guy an actual fucking weapon to play with. And so I'll go out of my way to buy weapons from the store that actually look like they were designed to be used by a human being, or an ogre in that case. Maybe this is just for the deluxe pack. We don't see what the default models of these weapons are. If this is the deluxe version of the crowbar, what's the regular version of the crowbar look like? If this is the deluxe version of the knife, what's the regular version of the shiv or whatever look like? The Uzis, as we see here, these Uzis look a lot more like, taped together, literally like held together with some sort of piece of cloth, got a little skull painted on it. But these Uzis here are much cleaner. Like these are clean manufactorum grade, just straight up Uzis. So perhaps the default weapons are just going to be kind of like normal looking like this. And I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. Like if this is, if we get these scummy versions for the deluxe edition, fair enough, right? But then just give me my versions that don't look like they're made out of literal garbage taped together. Overall, my thoughts on this, I think I'm mostly disappointed in the weapon selection because I was really hoping for a whip. I was really hoping for a tox flamer. There was a lot of stuff that I was getting, a spear. I was getting myself really hyped up for stuff like that, and it's not included here. But as I said at the beginning, because this is the hive scum, this is a very wide net to cast, right? There is a lot of stuff that falls under this purview, and therefore there's a lot of stuff that Fat Shark could pull from. My hope, my solemn prayer to the Games Workshop gods above is that because the hive scum is so much more just an invention, whole cloth from Fat Shark, like this is something that they sort of free-handed rather than being provided the exact lookbook for Arbites and having to follow that to the T, right? Arbites is pretty well explored and is very, very specific in how it looks and how it plays and what sort of weapons they use. I mean, they're a regimented unit after all, right? You can't get too crazy with it. That, I think, obviously played against the Arbites because they don't have the license to keep coming in and adding stuff in terms of cosmetics, and more importantly in terms of weapons. So I imagine the Arbites honestly will be frozen in time forever, but this character, since this is legally distinct and isn't a known entity, this is their artistic direction they can take here, right? They could add more weapons to this class, and that's what I really hope to see for it. Since they are not painting themselves into a corner by saying specifically Ganger, I'm hoping that we can start to get some other types of weapons, especially if this one introduces toxins and like poisons as a damage type. We get other poison type of weapons. And I'm also really eager to see what, there was no demonstration of ultimate abilities here. There was no demonstration of blitz abilities, although the stims could be a blitz. We'd have to imagine that's potentially a case. But that is all I have to share with you today, guys. Of course, there is a little bit of comic relief at the end. If this trailer wasn't comedic enough for you, if you love this face, well, you'll want to stick around and see this. And thanks so much for watching, guys. Thanks for supporting Darktide News Network. I'll see you real soon. Have a good one.
Where's my money, Denny?
Where's my fucking money, Denny?
We got it coming!
Lick my balls.
Don't hit the camera, man.
Dual wield!